Coming up on today's episode of the Money Pants podcast, infamous group projects, the bane of every grade school student. Do they really teach teamwork? We say no, not at all. Ever, never, ever, ever. We'll break down why teamwork is not the same as group projects, why group projects don't work in school, in the business world, in Hollywood, in sports, and why they don't work at home. Plus, where self-esteem really comes from. All this and more, but first, the joke of the day.
When I die, I want the people I did group projects with to lower me into my grave so they can let me down one last time. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Money Pants podcast. We are your hosts, Hannah and Fontaine Judd, and we're the proud parents of 7 sons and 6 daughters, ranging in age from college student to toddler. We're both BYU graduates and the creators of Money Pants. Head on over to CaptainMoneyPants.com to learn more about what we do and what we're all about. We're on a mission to support families who are trying to raise hardworking kids and to combat the current trend of entitlement. Today's topic is teamwork versus group projects. Hannah, I know you're passionate about this because you've had so many wonderful experiences, but I think, first off, before we get into that, we really like team sports. We think team sports teach a lot of great things, especially sports like soccer, basketball, football, the true team sports where, you learn hard work, you got discipline, practicing a specific skill until you're proficient at it. Of course, there's the friendship and the social skills kids learn, obedience, precision, character, and of course, teamwork. That's one of the main things you learn being on a team is the value of teamwork. But then you had that experience with that one mom.
Yeah, well, like you were saying, playing on a good team prepares the kids for their future. It helps them with their future careers and being successful in the real world. That all depends on teamwork and understanding teamwork. And also success at home depends on teamwork. And so one time I was at my daughter's basketball game, and I was talking with this other mom about how much I loved my kids playing sports and how much they benefited from it. And she said, yes, teamwork is so critical for success. And then she goes, in school, they are really emphasizing learning teamwork by having the kids do group projects. And as soon as she said that, my heart, I don't know if it was my heart or my stomach, but something just cringed like deep down inside me. And I was like, oh, group assignments, and a flood of memories came back of teachers who believed in group projects and would do that to us as students and sign out these group projects telling us how beneficial it would be for our future success. And what I thought of it was not the same as what they thought of it. I absolutely dreaded group projects I was involved in, and it wasn't because I didn't care about my grades or I wasn't academically minded, and it wasn't because I didn't know how to work. It was because I knew that nobody else cared about their grades, and ultimately, if I wanted a good grade, I had to do all the work. And they knew I cared about my grades, and they knew that they could slough it off onto me because I did not want my grade to drop. And so the other people were like, yes, I got her on my team. I'm off the hook. And they were just leeches that I had to deal with. It would have been so much easier just to say, hey, give me the whole project myself. I'll go get it done. But instead, it made me sick because they knew that, hey, I got a free ticket out of this one. I don't have any homework to do.
So you hated group projects because the group people in your group, 4, 5, 6, however many people were in your group, they all knew that if you were in the group,
they were going to get an A.
And they wouldn't have to do any work.
Right.
And you knew.
And it was set up that way. Because
you knew that you would do all the work.
Yeah.
But because if you didn't, you would not get a good grade.
Yeah.
But it was all under the guise of group project, but in reality, it was all on you. That's why you hated
it was all dumped on me. But if you went and talked to the teacher about it, like I tried doing that once in 10th grade and said, hey, look, the other people in my project, they don't want to do the work. The teacher turned it back on me. You need to learn teamwork. You're not going to be successful in the real world unless you learn to work with these other people. And I was the bad person by going and complaining to the teacher. Hey, these people on my team have no desire to lift a finger. They're not willing to. And she was like, no, you're the problem. You are not a team player. And I will punish you with a bad grade if you come complain to me about that again.
10th grade?
Yeah, 10th grade.
You would think by sophomore year of high school, teachers would stop giving group projects. That's like a third grade thing.
Actually, now they're really encouraging it here in California, where teachers are pretty much required to incorporate group projects in all the classes. And what they're touting is that this teaches teamwork, and teamwork is critical for these students' future success.
No, I remember in third grade. Yeah. I remember in fifth grade, we had the group project. I remember the one where we were doing the world explorers, like Magellan and Columbus and Cortez and all that. And we had to do a big group project, and we had to tell all the stories and illustrate and all this. And nobody lifted a finger in my group except me. And I did. I drew all the pictures. I did all the research. I wrote all the stories out. I did this whole flip book thing that turned out great. But it was clear. And the weird thing is the teacher got actually upset at me.
Because you did all the work.
Because I did all the work.
Well, it wouldn't have gotten done, teacher, if I didn't do all the work.
And I remember, third grade's 8 years old? I remember thinking, why would she be? It struck me as odd that she was upset that I had done all the work. Like, shouldn't you be glad the project got done? Like, isn't that the whole point of group projects, is to get it done? But
yeah.
Turns out it's not. Group projects are not the same as teamwork. And I think teachers have been sold like this false bill of goods, like, oh, group projects teach teamwork, but they don't.
They don't.
Group project, and that's just it.
And that's what we're going to talk about today. And if, you know what, and you're like, these people are wrong. They're the same thing, and they just don't understand the value of teamwork that group projects teach. Well, we're gonna challenge that. We are here to challenge that.
Because I vehemently disagree that group projects are the same as teamwork. Matter of fact, I'm going to suggest that group projects are a counterfeit for teamwork. Teamwork is not the same as group projects. Group projects are a fraud, and I want to expose them for what they are, because they are. Group projects are a fraud.
They are. They are a fraud. So okay, we're going to present all the ways that the things that make teamwork unique, and show how group projects are not like that. So let's
and eventually we'll get to the point where we talk about how this applies to the home. That's kind of the whole point.
Yeah.
But we have to kind of set the groundwork. So let's break it down.
So
true teamwork is effective, and group projects are not. I think that's what it really breaks down to, because what's your motive for doing a group project? Oh, I want everybody to learn teamwork, and I want them to learn skills, and I want them to develop, and I want them
to work with people and
But that's
share
not what happens,
and
and that's the problem. And there's some basic reasons why.
Yeah, it's the intention, but it's in reality, that is not what happens. And I know it's not what happens, because you look up group projects on the internet.
Everybody knows
that's not what actually happens in a group project.
I can't wait when I die. That whole joke, when I die, that, I want all my group project friends to lower me into the grave so they can let me down one more time. That's so true, because group projects,
amen.
Everybody lets you down. It's just, and what? But let's break it down as to why. I think.
And if you're here saying, I love group projects, well, you know what? I don't like you.
Because you are the problem.
You are probably the person.
You're the one just sitting, you're the one that disappears and shows up at the end and gets a good grade after I did all the work.
Yeah.
So okay, so true teamwork, there's some parameters, though, when it comes to creating a team versus a group project. So, like, when you create a team, first of all, almost always you have to try out for the team. There's also usually a coach or some sort of coaching position. There are distinct positions and responsibilities on that team. Everyone's supposed to stay in their own lane. And it's impossible to win the game without help from the team.
Yeah, and those are all very unique attributes to sports teams.
But that's what we talk about when we're talking about teamwork. Is everybody has specific responsibilities, but that are unique but separate from everybody else's responsibilities. And there's a coach or there's all these different parameters for teamwork. But when it comes to group projects, you're just kind of all lumped together. It's arbitrary. There's no coach. You're all peers, and the responsibilities aren't delegated. There's overlap. There's inefficiencies. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, so let's talk about these attributes each individually. So first off, when you have a team, normally with a team, you have to try out for the team. There are tryouts. Unlike group projects, like you were saying, where you're just lumped together, you get selected based off of your reputation, the skills you bring to the table, your commitment to be there for practices and games. And then the coach decides he wants you to be on the team because you're going to be an asset to the team.
I think you brought up reputation actually makes a big difference. Like you could be, and we've seen this in the professional sports world a ton, you could be the most amazing athlete, but if you come with a rotten attitude or what's called the locker room, where you influence the locker room in a negative way, coaches actually don't want you. Like, so just by virtue of being talented or having an ability or a skill set isn't enough if you're a toxic person.
Yeah, if you treat other people like dirt.
So reputation, I just liked how you put that in. That was cool.
Yeah, and so trying out for the team and trying to bring your best to the table and show that you'll be valuable to the team and trying to get picked to the team, that actually reflects... that reflects real world.
It shows you want to be there too if you're trying out to be on the team.
Yeah, in the real world, you have to apply for jobs. You have to provide referrals and a resume and express commitment that you're going to show up to work each day on time. And a boss decides to make you part of his team because he's like, okay, they're going to be an asset to us and move this company forward.
Right. And so that actually leads right into the next attribute of teamwork, which is there's a coach. And that's so different. Group projects, and here's the problem I have with group projects, is that nobody's in charge. There's no...
Somebody always takes charge. It's usually the person that wants to actually get the project
or
done.
the type A personality. But but I've been in groups where the type A personality was wrong. And it drove me nuts because I'm not as assertive per se in those situations because I hate them. But the person... More often than not, there's that one person who thinks they know everything, and they're like, "I'm in charge." And almost every time, I'm like, "That's wrong. That's not the way I would do it. That's the wrong approach." And it drove me nuts, and just so many. But I didn't have any power to say, "No, let's do it this way." There was no delegation of authority.
Well, yeah, because you could step up. Let's say, okay, nobody was taking charge, and so you stepped up and said, "Okay, this is what we're going to do," and you have no power to enforce.
Yeah, so even if you are in charge, how do you enforce?
You have no real power.
Okay, you have 4 people in your group, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do this. But what if they don't do it?
And what if somebody says they don't want to do it? And then they can use peer pressure and ostracize you or punish you in some other way.
In a social setting. Oh, you thought you were outside of class. They're oh, here's the leader.
Yeah, and just be mean to you in other ways. But you don't have...
I mean, that never happened to me, though.
No. But you don't have any real power. You're not able to give them a bad grade or...
no, that's a great point. Yeah, because even if, let's say at the end of the group project, they did nothing. They didn't lift a finger.
And the project failed because of them not bringing their poster.
You all lose. Everybody loses.
Yeah.
But you don't have the authority to be like, hey, teacher, they didn't do their job.
Yeah, this person gets an A, D,
Nope, doesn't work that way. The teacher gives you all the same grade. I hate group projects.
You all get the same grade.
No matter what the effort level that was put in. So if they put in 10% effort and you put in 110%, then you both get the same grade. Oh, it just drives me nuts. That's like the epitome of everything wrong with group projects.
Yeah.
Because that's not how the real world works. That's not how anything works.
Yeah, and the reality is the teacher is supposed to be the leader in the classroom.
Yes.
She's not a peer.
It's just like the coach. Like on a team, the coach is the one who holds the tryouts. The coach is the one who assigns positions, the one that decides on the practice schedule and consequences for showing up late, or who plays, who gave. I coached. I know where the head coach is the one who decides who the best players are.
Yeah, they hand out awards, they hand out consequences, they can kick you off the team.
But they also decide, okay, you gave 100% in practice today, you're going to be starting versus you're not going to be starting, and they're able to make that decision.
Yeah, there are consequences.
But in a group project,
the
that doesn't exist.
Basically the teacher who is the coach, who does give out grades, who does hold the power,
has abdicated her responsibility.
They step out of the situation, but they don't leave a suitable replacement.
Well, it's a vacuum. They leave a vacuum of authority. Well, think about it this way. What if let's just take football, for example. What if the head coach was like, okay, guys, go out there and practice. You guys decide who's going to play what positions, and I'll be over here, and let me know how the first game goes.
But yeah, that's essentially group projects.
What would happen?
Oh, people would pick who their friends are.
Uh-huh.
And they would not make their friends run as many laps, but they would let their friends
play the positions that they wanted.
Starting positions.
Uh-huh. And whoever was most popular, not necessarily most talented or most hardworking, would get the coveted spots. Well, they wouldn't get the credit because when you failed miserably, they'd be like, "Oh, it was so and so's fault."
Yeah.
They wouldn't take any of the responsibility. Oh, it'd just be a big disaster. But yet, that's what we're doing.
With a lot of bad feelings.
But that's what's happening in our school system.
Where group projects are being
touted. Or anywhere that school
as...
projects are being touted. And it's like, that's ridiculous. The logic is so flawed and so fundamentally wrong and not based in reality. Anyway.
Well, yeah, reality, let's take a work scenario. You always have a boss. The boss hires, they fire, they tell you when to show up, and they assign you your responsibilities.
Yes, and what happens
if they hand out paychecks, right?
Right. There's your reward.
They give raises, they give promotions, and they have the final say.
They give referrals and recommendations if you're going to a different place. Yeah.
And exactly. They're not a coworker, and they're not a peer. You don't treat your boss like a coworker.
Yep.
That's a no-no. A boss is the coach running his team and calling the shots, and they figure out how to utilize each member of their team to the
So that brings
based on their abilities.
And that brings us right into the next point. On a team, you have distinct and specific positions or jobs to do on the team. So, the expectations are clear, unlike a group project where it's like, everybody kind of gets lumped together and just
work
get
together.
it done. Yeah, and it's like, what if you did that with a soccer team? Okay, guys, work together to win. Here's the problem. If somebody on your team is out of position, then there's no goalie, or maybe there's no forwards, or maybe you're playing defense the whole game, you're going to lose because you need that structure and that organization and the defined responsibilities and defined positions in order for the team to be efficient and effective. And that's what we're all about. Is this whole concept of group project it's unfair, but it's also wildly ineffective, just incredibly ineffective. So I'll give you an example. Again, I was a football coach for several years, and we would design some pretty intricate plays, and all it would take would be for one person out of the 11 boys on our team that are on the field at any given time, all it would take would be for one of them to be out of position for the play to fail. I remember one time where we had a blocking scheme where the left side wide receiver was supposed to clear out and take the safety all the way to the right side so we could have the running play off to the left, and we were going to get some good yardage. But the wide receiver wasn't getting the ball, wasn't paying attention, and didn't do his blocking scheme correctly, and we ended up losing yards on the play because one person didn't do their job.
Didn't go where he was supposed to go.
The other 10 guys all did their job and all did it very well and precisely and did exactly as the play was designed, but that one person didn't do their job, and it messed up the whole play.
But the thing is because this was an actual team, everybody did have a distinct assignments, and so when you were watching that play, you knew who botched it.
Oh, yeah.
And that kid got reprimanded or pulled off.
Yeah, I did. I was in charge of the wide receivers, actually. And so I pulled him off, and I said, hey, this was the assignment you were given, and you didn't do that. you're going to stay over here with me for a couple of minutes. We're going to review to make sure you understand all the plays. And then I ended up sending him back in. But he got pulled off because clearly...
But you didn't blame the other 10 boys.
No, absolutely not.
Whereas in a group project...
Yeah, it's shared blame.
Together.
Oh, it's shared
you guys
blame.
all are to blame. No, they did their jobs. They did what they were where they were supposed to be, and they get credit for that. Yeah, maybe it cost them the game, and they all lost together in the end, but it wasn't blamed on them because they had done their part.
Right. And that's how the real world works. Like this mentality that somehow we're all in this together as a team with specific responsibilities. And so, yes, we're in this together, but we don't all have the same job.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's not just this big...
We have a lot of these catchphrases, but I don't think we quite understand how they work.
Together, we're working together. So, yes, we're working together, but all separately.
Well, here's the thing. We're all in this together with one goal to win.
Yeah, our goal is to win.
Our goal is to win, but each one of us has a specific responsibility in order to achieve that goal.
And your responsibility is very defined when you're on a team.
Yes. Well,
and a real team.
Well, and we'll talk
on a real team.
We'll talk about that.
Your responsibility is defined, like to a T. Especially in football, it's like very exact. What you're supposed to do.
Yes, it is. Football is probably the most exact. That and baseball, there were some very precise, exact things that you have to do. Those two sports are very precise. But you brought up a good point. This also applies in the business world where you have distinct positions. I worked in Hollywood for a long time where there are producers, there are writers, there are executives, there are editors and music and sound and the camera crew, and there's accounting and casting, all these different departments and all these different people doing all these different things, all with the end goal of completing a goal, which is to create a great product, a TV show or a movie or a commercial or whatever. And what would happen if the accounting department decided, you know what, I'm going to go and be the camera crew today. And the camera crew's like, you know what, I'm going to be the editor. And, and the sound guy's like, I'm doing craft services. That's totally me. Like, what would happen to the show?
It wouldn't happen.
It would fall apart. That ultimately it wouldn't happen.
They have very strict rules against not doing, like, you're not allowed to do someone else's job.
Right, exactly.
On a film crew, there are actually strict rules against, you don't do that other person's job.
Well, I heard a story one time. It didn't happen to me, but a director friend of mine was doing his first union shoot. And he was really excited because it was golden hour, which is that, short time period where the lighting is just perfect. The sun's about to set. And he was going to get a great shot of this field. And he's like, oh, this is fantastic. And so he's like, come on, guys, let's go get the shot. And he picked up the sticks, the tripod and the camera, and he ran up to the top of the field and he set them up and he motioned to the other people and he looked back and no one had lifted a finger. And he's like, what's going on? Turns out he had taken somebody else's job of moving the camera. And that was a big taboo, big no-no. And the crew revolted and they got really upset at him. And he's like, did I do something wrong? Because yes, in Hollywood, especially in unions, there are extremely strict, very clearly defined rules as to who can do what, and who can touch what, and where things go. And that was a big eye-opener for him, where he's like, oh.
You got to stay in your lane, buddy.
And that's the very next topic is what it means to stay in your lane, where, again, in a group project, everybody's the cameraman, everybody's the director, everybody's the actor, everybody's the editor.
Well,
again, that's wildly inefficient.
That lack of individual responsibility is why one kid does the whole project for everyone else. That's why that ends up happening. Is because there's no individual responsibility. But if you look at team sports, that would never fly in team sports. That there's no way. What goes on in group projects, there's no way that could even feasibly work in team sports
or business
or at the home. It doesn't work. And so like, what are some examples? Like, what if you had like a quarterback who went, oh, I'm gonna,
Well, we ran over those. Like, what if the pitcher and the in baseball, the pitcher and the catcher are like switching places all the time, or the first baseman was going over to help the outfielder, or in soccer, the goalie.
Or no, saying that both of the positions are his. He's gonna do both.
Oh, even better. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna
could
do
you imagine?
both. You're gonna be quarterback and wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm gonna be pitcher and catcher.
Nope.
There's no way.
No, you're not.
It's literally impossible.
Yeah.
Well, no, I guess you could throw the ball really high as the pitcher and then run over and be the catcher. No, it wouldn't work. Or I'm going to be the forward and goalie on the soccer field. Like that.
And the coach.
And
the coach.
And by the way, I'm also going to be coach. Like
you can't do that and do it well. You're not going to win.
But that brings up a good point, though. Why you need a coach, though. Because a coach can see things from a different perspective than the players. So, I guess we're going to talk about that in a second, but the idea is that a coach, in order for a team to be effective, you have to have a coach, someone who's in charge, but also somebody who has more experience and has a different perspective than the players. We'll talk about that in a second. I think, though...
Well, our oldest son was once on a team that... It wasn't a particularly talented team, but it was a very good coach, and he was a construction foreman, and he was also the
you're
coach,
talking about
Coach
the football?
Tim.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Coach Tim. One of my husband, you.
Yes, I'm here.
You were one of the assistant coaches, and
Yep.
What did you notice about?
That was my very first year of coaching.
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was doing. But that was interesting though, because it ended up being like the team motto. What this coach would say was, do your job.
Emphasis on your.
Do
your job.
Where it got to the point where we'd be in practice, and these are young kids. I mean, Caleb was 12, 11, something like that.
They were like 7th, 8th graders.
Where, they think they know better. They think they know more than the coach, and they've been watching football their whole lives with their dads on the couch, and they think they know the game, and they think they're, these amazing athletes, when in reality they're 11 and 12-year-old boys. And so it really helps to have a coach who's there to kind of direct them and put them in the right way. But the problem we had was we had some guys who had played multiple positions in the past, and that's the other thing. At that age level, what position you play is still kind of fluid, where you haven't finished growing, so football coaches, we're not exactly sure if you're a lineman or a running back or a receiver or if you're a defensive end. Like, there's a lot of fluidity still in what you're capable of. So the boys weren't really sure what their positions were, and the coach really kind of cracked down. He's like, no, your job as defensive end is to contain. And we would spend countless hours in practice defining each position and what they were supposed to do on each individual play, whether it was a defensive play or an offensive play. And when a play would fall apart, when a play wouldn't go well, without fail, it was someone who didn't do their job. But it was interesting is that a lot of times the reasons guys wouldn't do their job is because they were too busy trying to do somebody else's job.
They're like, oh, he's not doing his job. And so they would leave their position.
Billy was out of position, so I went to go help him. And the coach would get so angry. He would get red in the face, and he'd be like, do not help your teammate. Do your job. Do your job. Because what happens if your teammate's out of position and you go to help him? Now you're out of position. So now it's twice as bad. Now we have two people out of position. The play, it's possible. You could salvage a play if one guy's out of position. But when two guys are out of position, and then what happens if your other teammate sees that you're out of position? Now he comes to help you. So now we have three people out of position, and the whole thing doesn't work. And so the coach would get red in the face. He'd get so mad at these preteen boys. He'd be like, do your job. Do your job. Don't worry about his job. Do your job. And that stuck with me because it was right. He was right. He was 100% correct that when we focus on doing our job and doing our job properly,
within the team,
it's the coach's job to watch out for your teammates, not yours. It's his job to make sure that the right people are in the right place at the right time. And you have to trust the coach, because a good coach will do just that. And if, you know what, and I'm not saying that it's bad to help out teammates, but I'm saying when you have specific jobs and you're relinquishing your responsibility to go help somebody else, you've actually made the problem worse.
So
when you abdicate your job to go do somebody else's job that you think, and what if you're wrong? What if they were doing what they were told and you just didn't know? Like you mess everything up by not doing your job. So do your job. Stay in, and we talk about that where we call that staying in your lane. Where, you know, when you're running a race, what happens if you're running track, and you did, Hannah?
I did.
What happens if you leave your lane?
You get disqualified.
Why?
You're infringing on somebody else's. It doesn't make the race fair, but you're also getting in the way of the other people. And so then that's not fair to them. And couldn't somebody get injured? Like, because you have those track spikes and just all sorts of problems. There's all sorts of problems. There's all sorts of problems with not staying in your own lane. See, stay in your lane. Stay in your. Stay focused on where you're supposed to be. Do your job. Stay in your job the best you can. Yeah. And that's your only focus. You don't worry about the other people. But along those lines, though, that's the whole concept of individual responsibility. I think that's what we're really talking about is individual responsibility. You have this assignment, do it. Well, what was interesting is this Coach Tim, the one who just kept beating that into the boys' head to do their job. That team did not have like particularly great athletes. It wasn't like, we were pretty mediocre. It was an average team, but he got everybody doing their own job. And so watching their team and carry out their plays, they were like a well-oiled machine, and they dominated. But it wasn't because of the talent on the team. It was because everybody was doing their part and focused on doing their part. They knew what their part was. He had defined it, and they stayed focused on their part. And because of that, like I said, it worked like a well-oiled machine where every part of the machine had its own function and it just worked together. And that was teamwork. And it was really fun to watch. Yeah, and to be a part of it. And it was fun to watch. I learned so much that year about proper teamwork and how a real team functions. Because I've coached a lot of teams since then. And I've been on teams where, you know, it was the dad trying to make sure his son or daughter got the most playing time. And those are actually the most annoying teams to be on because there is no teamwork. And it's all about one person doing all the work. But I realize that's a completely different topic. But But this was a real coach. It wasn't somebody's dad. Yeah. He wasn't related to anybody on the team. And he did a good job. And he did a really good job. And he was successful because of that. Because some people, you're right, they don't run their teams well. They don't understand what teamwork is, and they don't understand how to run a team. But when you look at the coaches who do, like Coach Tim, where he took a group of mediocre boys and took them to the championship, this was one of the key things that he emphasized was do your job. Well, and it reminded me, though, of Dan Moore, the other football coach, Caleb's very first football coach. That was rather amazing, yeah. Who had an uncanny ability to pinpoint what each one of the boys' specific talents were and utilize them to the best degree possible. And he did end up winning the championship and everything. He won it all. Yeah, didn't he win like a national championship? He won a national championship with those boys. Who were not like big, particularly big. They weren't particularly fast, particularly talented, or particularly big. But because they all knew their jobs and they did them with extreme precision. Again, I'll go back to that movie Hoosiers, where the coach was given a handful of boys but he knew what each one of their talents and abilities were. And he was able to take them to the championship game because they listened to the coach. Yeah. It wasn't a group project. No. And remember that halfway through the movie, it was starting to become a group project where the boys are like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that. And the coach is like, no. And everybody from town stay in your lane. Do your job. So now here's kind of the big reveal. All of this applies to the family. All of this applies to how you run your home. Because Well, because a lot of parents are like, hey, I want my kids to work together like a team. That's right. You do. But you have to know what a team is and how a healthy team functions.
Teams are not group projects.
Yeah.
Do not run your home like a group project.
Do not confuse group projects with teamwork. They are not the same.
Well, and let's break it down a little more. Even a marriage is not a group project. A marriage is a team. Two people working together to accomplish a common goal or a common good. So for instance, I think when we first got married, my job was to stroke your hair and call you beautiful. And your job was to make sure I ate.
Right. It was a really, really good working relationship. Clear boundaries and...
Because I just wouldn't eat and you had to remind me to eat.
That was what we jokingly would say. But we actually did divide things up. Like in our marriage, we decided, hey, my husband, you're going to be the provider. I'm going to stay home with the kids. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be preparing meals. And it's what I wanted to do. And we I would do the finances, and I would do the house repairs, and maintain the cars and all that. What was funny is we began noticing that when we would have fights, most of the time the fights would be either because I had PMS or because one of us wasn't staying in our own lane. Like my husband started, telling me where to put things in the kitchen or how to do my job, or I started, getting stressed about what his responsibilities were and telling him what to do.
Yes. Because it would always end up one of us was abdicating our own responsibilities and going into the other person's lane.
The other person. And
no, think about people when they retire. They go nuts.
Right.
The wife goes crazy. If she's been a stay-at-home mom, and now all of a sudden the husband's home, she's been running the home for 40 years, and all of a sudden you've got Yahoo McGillicuddy telling you how to run your home. You're like, yo.
Back off.
Yeah. Back off, pal. Go back to work. You go golfing. I don't care. Get out of the house because I can't stand it. You're telling me how to run the home.
This is my territory.
This is my lane. You go. And that's the problem.
So they have to redefine their lanes.
And you do. And that is incredibly healthy to define what your lanes are. If you haven't done that, like as a couple, you should clearly, you need to set that up.
My grandfather retired and he never because he never did anything after he retired. I never saw him doing any responsibilities around the house after he retired. I bet
because they didn't redefine.
I bet they never redefined
what the lanes were.
Responsibilities. Mm-hmm. And so my grandmother just kept working and doing all the same things she had always done, taking care of the pool, taking care of the yard, taking care of the laundry and the cooking
and the shopping and the budget and everything.
Oh, I bet that's what happened. I should call up my grandmother and ask.
Grandma,
what happened?
Did you guys ever sit down and redefine the lanes?
Did you never talk about that when he retired?
But marriage is like just a two-person team. Mm-hmm. You still need to have clearly defined responsibilities and what your lanes are, or it doesn't work.
Yeah.
If you approach marriage as a group project, you're going to
have a lot of fights.
Your marriage will be fraught with anger, miscommunication, and frustration. But let me clarify. I'm not saying that I can't help you with the dishes. I can't help you with grocery shopping. I'm saying, though, that's not my responsibility.
Yeah.
So, there have been times where you have helped me do finances. I mean, every year you go with me to do the taxes, which, we both love. But I'm not saying that you can't help out, but it has to be when the dishes are overwhelming, of course I'm going to help you. It's not as structured as a football team where if I go out of my lane, everything's going to explode. But the idea is to have clearly defined responsibilities so that then once I've completed my jobs, I can help you out.
Well, how many young couples have their first baby and fight over who's going to change the baby's diaper?
Oh, yeah.
That happens all the time. Where they
common.
Don't work out a a lane thing, you know?
Yeah. They haven't decided who's going to do what.
Who's going to do it or when. And they end up just mad at each other.
And the secret.
You never do it. And I always do
no,
it.
and then they end up hiring a nanny or something. Somebody else does it.
Somebody else does this nasty job.
Is there a service? Can I hire somebody to come change my nasty kid?
Oh.
So if mom and dad are kind of like a team, I think in the family situation, it's more like mom and dad are the coaches.
Mm-hmm.
When you have kids, they're the players and mom and dad are the coaches. And the idea is, just like a coach for a soccer game, the coach has a different viewpoint and can see what's going on the field when maybe the players can't. The players don't have the full picture. They can see what is right around them, but they don't have the full picture. They also don't have the game plan. Mm-hmm. Whereas the coach, mom and dad, have the game plan, but they also happen to have way more experience and way more understanding of how things work than a 10, 12, 14, 16-year-old kid would. And so mom and dads are like the perfect coaches. And unlike a coach on the soccer field or on the football team, mom and dads love their kids and want what's best for their kids. Mm-hmm. And so mom and dads actually make the best coaches if you understand that idea, though, in the home. And so the thing is, though, mom and dad, and see, I grew up with this, where certain parental figures in my life thought they were the coach, but they didn't lift a finger. They didn't do jack. And they were under the impression that they were like the king. That's not what we're talking about. Coaches have very specific responsibilities. If the coaches don't do their job, then the team falls apart. If the coach, like in football, if you didn't go back and review film, if you didn't watch how the players did last game and how your team reacted to certain play calls, or if you don't do your research on the upcoming game, you're going to fall flat on your face. And it doesn't matter what...
If you don't plan out practices and organize and do the teaching.
Exactly. And so...
show the kids what to do. And it's not going to work.
The coaches have a lot of work to do. And so the idea is you're not king and queen with all your servants running around doing your bidding. It's... You're a coach,
you're participating and you're serving the team.
And you have specific jobs. You also have a lane that it's clearly defined what your responsibilities are. And with Money Pants, actually, you and I have jobs that are clear. That's what I love about Money Pants. You have very clearly defined jobs. I literally do finances. I do household repairs. I take care of the car. I do
grocery shopping. I do
payday.
Meal planning.
It's there. It's written down. It's very clear on Money Pants what your responsibilities are. There's no confusion.
Yeah.
What your jobs are, and the same with the kids.
You run payday and the inspections and But if you look at this and some of the mistakes like people make of doing group projects, and I've caught myself doing this, and it's
we all do that.
We've all made the mistake of, and you've probably done this. I know I have.
And it drives me nuts afterwards when I realize.
The backyard's a mess, and I say, okay, you guys can't come in until you guys all clean the backyard.
I am ashamed.
Okay.
I have done that.
Okay. And so what happens if you, based off of what we know about group assignments, you can predict what would happen in that scenario is one child wants to get it over with. They start cleaning while the rest of them goof off.
Interestingly.
That's most of the time what's going to happen. It may be different based off of the personalities of the kids, but I've also made the mistake of when I'm assigning out jobs saying, oh, why don't you two work on the dishes together? You guys can be partners doing the dishes together, but without assigning out specific responsibilities within the job of dishes. And they'll be like, yeah, we'll work together. And the first day it works out, maybe the second day it works out. But eventually, very soon thereafter, I go, what was I thinking?
Does it ever last more than a day or two?
No. It always ends with fights about one person's not doing their share.
Yes, they're not doing their share.
Not doing their share.
Well, here's the thing, though.
Because there's no defining of what their share is. There's no And it just causes bad feelings both ways where you're like, well, I did what I thought I was supposed to. No, I've done more.
Or what'll happen is
but it wasn't defined.
What will happen is they'll decide that first day, okay, I'll do this and you'll do that. But it's not clear and there's nobody to enforce it. So the second day, the person B will be like, wait a minute. I thought I did more yesterday. I'm definitely doing more today. I don't think this is fair anymore. Mm-hmm. And there'll be a fight. It happens that fast, even though they had defined it. Because there was nobody in charge and authoritative.
Yeah, nobody is signing out. You do this, you do that, you do that. Another example is if I've also done this where I say, hey kids, the house is messy. Let's clean it together. and I don't make this mistake anymore, but I used to make this mistake. But
what would happen?
You end up nagging, yelling, getting upset at the kids, and you just end up cleaning everything yourself.
Or what happens is, like in the backyard example, you and the kid next to you, who you can see, end up cleaning, and everybody else just disappears.
It's the disappearing
magically disappears.
Yeah. So those are group projects. And so
because they're undefined responsibilities.
Yeah. So what would work better, like with the backyard, is what I do now is, okay, the backyard's a mess, need it clean. I want you to pick up clothes. You're in charge of garbage. You're in charge of sweeping the porch. You're in charge of organizing the toys. You're in charge of this. Go.
And it works really
and
well.
All of a sudden, everybody, because they know what their job is, and they just get to work. Well,
typically it's if they want to go with us somewhere, or we're about to watch a movie.
Yeah.
Because then there's a reward.
Well, because if you say none of you can come in the house till it's done, you're going to get the one kid that wants to come in the house, and they just end up doing it all themselves.
Yep.
And the other ones, I'm willing to wait it out.
I'm ashamed to admit I made that mistake the other day. Oh, God, just the other day.
How could you?
Well, we had dropped that big branch off of one of our trees onto the lawn, and I was able to cut it up, and then what was left were all those little tiny branches, not branches, sticks, all over in the lawn. And they poke your feet when you step on them, or we feed them to the animals and they get stuck in their throat. And it's not good. So we had to go through and pick up all these little tiny, I don't know, like 2-3 inch little sticks. Twigs, yeah. All throughout the lawn. And I'm like, okay, guys, everybody grab a bucket. Let's get this cleaned up and then we can go swimming. I should have assigned each person an area.
Yeah, you're in charge of this area.
This is your area.
On your mark, it said go.
I'm so ashamed because you know what happened, and I found myself getting frustrated because one of the younger kids just walked around the entire time, literally walking on top of the sticks that he was supposed to be picking up
and breaking them into smaller pieces.
Whereas the other kids did a great job, and partially it's because they know how to work, but it was a group project. I had forgotten that basic. I was thinking, 5 minutes, let's just all get in there and get it done. As a group project. Even a simple little, let's pick up some of these sticks, it'll take a few minutes, even something as simple as that I turned into a group project, failed.
Well, one time...
Group projects don't work. They don't work.
I was hosting Thanksgiving at
I was going to go there. I wrote myself a note.
Okay. And this is
a major success story.
Okay. So I'm glad
you remembered
there was company coming into town, a whole bunch of company. And I had a small house, but I was hosting Thanksgiving at my house. I was pretty excited about it. And I wanted it to be a success. And so I thought about it. And I thought about Thanksgivings where I had gone to other people's houses. And I always feel awkward at other people's houses at Thanksgiving time because they're working hard in the kitchen, they're setting things up, and I always feel awkward. I don't really know what to do. Some people have a sense for that, and I don't. I don't
think as many people do as you think.
I don't know. Some people just get in there and like, oh, I'm going to do this for you, and I'm going to do that, and they just get in there. And
I think that's rare.
I don't know.
Because I don't get it either.
I just feel awkward, and then I end up sitting on the couch and feeling more awkward. And
because you're useless and you're not helping out, and everybody else is working.
Yeah, but everybody else is working, and I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing.
And there's so much to do because Thanksgiving's a big meal.
Or if you ask them, what can I do? Oh, nothing, just to sit and enjoy. And you're like, yeah, do you mean it? Or are you just saying that?
And then you're resentful that I didn't help.
Yeah. And yeah, you know people like that where they say they don't want help, but they really do. But they want you to figure it out and read their minds. Anyway, so I was like, I hate that. I like to know what's expected of me, and I like having an assignment, and I like it being clear so I don't have to guess. It just makes me feel anxious. And so what I did is I planned out the menu, I got all the ingredients, I printed out recipes for each thing. And when the guests arrived, I said, okay, Quincy, you're in charge of the sweet potato pie. And you're in charge, and somebody else, you're in charge of the fruit salad. And you're in charge of the turkey. And here's the recipe, and good luck. We're all depending on you. And everybody had their assignment. One person was to decorate the table and get it set. And another person mowed the lawn. I don't know why they mowed the lawn. But everybody had assignments. And it was the most relaxing Thanksgiving. Everybody was so relaxed. We were all working together. And it was actually very bonding. I thought, like, everybody felt more bonded, I think.
Well, no, afterwards, multiple people, totally unsolicited, came up to you. I remember this and said, that was the best Thanksgiving ever.
It was.
And it wasn't because the food was amazing or the venue was fantastic. We were in our little tiny house in Burbank.
And it was so enjoyable.
It's because everybody was contributing.
Everybody was able to relax.
And have a good time knowing they had done what was asked of them. Because you...
There were no unspoken expectations.
Yeah, I hate that. I hate unspoken expectations.
Yeah, and so it's just actually really refreshing where, like I said, the situation where, let's say you were assigned to work with somebody to do the dishes, there would always be that strain of, did I do enough? Is the other person getting mad at me?
Right.
Where is that?
Well, go back to the sports example.
When it's clearly defined, you can relax and you can be confident that, hey, I did my part. And I love that. It's relaxing. So
but that's one of those main concepts we talk about, though, is the whole divide and conquer.
Yes, divide and conquer.
That's exactly what we did.
Can you believe that a team is about dividing? It is. That seems totally counterintuitive.
We're unified. What are you talking about?
We're unified, but in order to be unified, you have to divide.
Yes.
And
divide up the responsibilities.
You're unified in the ultimate goal, but you have to divide up in order to conquer. In order to win, you have to divide up. We already talked about what the messy backyard you should have done is divide it up.
I should have given
everybody specific responsibilities.
A 4-foot section. Here's your section.
Yeah.
It would have been, Hannah, it would have been so easy.
Yeah.
Because then it's clear when they're done. Yeah. They don't have to keep working.
They know they did their part.
And
they know what their part is. And
you know who didn't do their part.
And it's individual responsibility.
And it's satisfying.
So
there's nothing worse than a job that just keeps going and there's no end and you don't know where your responsibilities begin or end. Oh, that's just...
well, it takes away your motivation. Like, you're like, oh, the more I do, the more I get to do.
Yep, it's true too.
And it's like...
We've all had jobs like that.
So, yeah, and I'm sure there are businesses that run their offices this way.
Not very well.
But they would be so much more effective.
Would you want to work in an environment like that?
No,
nobody does.
It would be so stressful.
Yeah, it's constant stress. If you work in an environment like that, you should quit.
Okay, start your own business and apply the correct principles. Okay.
So, but going back to the whole applying this to family, I think part of the problem, Hannah, is this is going to sound funny, but the number of children people have. When you have one kid, you don't really think about teamwork or assigning lanes because you as the parent can kind of do it all.
Yeah, it's not a necessity. Teamwork isn't a necessity.
When you have two kids, mom and dad can still kind of do everything and kids don't really help out. What happens is when you have 3 kids, all of a sudden you can't, you're outnumbered. And all of a sudden you're kind of forced to go, we need to come up with a game plan. A game
plan.
That's why we call that a game plan because that's where it comes from team sports, where you come up with these are the responsibilities. And by the time people have 3 kids, that's when all of a sudden they start breaking out the point charts and going, okay,
No.
how's this gonna
That's
work?
when they say, well, we're not going to have any more children.
That's true too.
But that's why. Because they're going, oh my goodness, this is overwhelming. I can't do this.
They say that after 2. They're looking at the future going, if we had 3, everything would come crashing down.
But people freak out when they have 3 kids, and it's because they can no longer do it themselves.
But that's when we realized it. When we had 3 kids, I remember pulling my hair out going, what? We had a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a newborn. And I was like, what have we done? What have we done?
It was overwhelming.
And it forced us to realize we have to come up with a game plan. We have to come up with specific responsibilities.
This 2-year-old that made the house a mess, she can pick up her toys.
And she
knows
could.
how.
The thing is, she could.
She could.
And
she
we
was
gave her
able
that
to.
responsibility, and we gave her rewards for it, and set up the point charts.
She rose to the challenge.
And we're like, oh.
Yeah.
And so by the time we had 4 kids, we're like, oh, well, it's no different than having 3.
Yeah.
Because we just assign responsibilities and move on. And 5, 6.
And now we realize that the more kids you have, the easier the housework. No,
no, it's just gotten exponentially more complicated.
I'm just kidding. That's not why.
Which is why we had to develop the app.
That's like when you said, oh, the reason we had kids is because I never had any friends.
I just wanted friends.
The real reason we have a big family.
That's terrible. It's terrible. But true.
Okay. Oh, it's still off. Okay.
So, but going back to this whole concept, and let's just wrap it up here. We got Coach Mom and Dad, where it's our job to run the home, to assign the jobs, and to make sure that they're fair, at least to, it's, and that's just it. The whole concept of fairness is another topic. But we try to make jobs roughly the same as far as difficulty and ability and time commitment. But that's our job, and clearly define those lanes for our kids and their responsibilities. And I think of the example of you where you're like, you can't, I've made this, one of your jobs is to food preparation. Now you have helpers, but that's your job, and you can delegate to your assistants, but the job is yours.
Of getting the meals done.
And you'll do this delicious breakfast, and you'll say, okay, you guys can enjoy this delicious breakfast as soon as
your rooms are clean.
Because, and part of the reason, though, and the significance of making sure that we have these clear-cut, obvious, no confusion responsibilities is because with group projects, what happens is we've talked about extensively is that one person ends up doing all the work. They become the martyr. Is that what we want to teach our kids?
Yeah.
We want to teach them to become a martyr, to become a doormat,
to not know how to say no, and to let other people take advantage of them,
or to feel that all the responsibilities on them, like somehow it's their job.
Like codependence is what that is.
You're literally teaching your children codependence with a group project. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If you guilt them into it, and but you should do it, and it's the team, and.
But then on the flip side,
meanwhile, there's a bunch of leeches all
that's the flip
clinging
side,
onto them.
You've got all these other people who are trying to game the system and get out of work. Yeah. And they know, oh, well, Trixie, I know, is a hard worker. And
if I just hook onto...
if I pretend like I'm incapable, she'll do the laundry for me. Oh, I have a headache. She'll do the dishes for me. Oh, yeah.
I once saw one of my brothers do that to my mom. She told him to fold the laundry or something, and he went, oh, I don't know how. And so he took his shirt and he folded it together just as sloppy as he could.
Irritatingly sloppy. Just knowing
I was his peer, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what an
knowing
act.
That his folding job would irritate your mom. Yes.
And so she's like, oh fine, I'll do it myself.
You're like, Mom, no, you fell for it.
He was doing that on purpose. He purposely
and Mom, you
pretended
fell for
he was handicapped. Stop it. He's not handicapped.
So we don't want to teach our kids that either. We don't want to teach group projects raise martyrs, codependent people, and those who are trying to game and trick the system.
Yeah, it's not healthy. Those are not healthy relationships. That is not teamwork. That is people taking advantage of other people and people being taken advantage of.
Which pretty sure
And
isn't what
that's
you want
not
to teach your
teamwork.
kids. But that's not what you want to teach your kids. That's not how you want to raise your kids. That's not what you want your kids to become. And you don't want your kids to always be looking for a way out. You don't want your kids to always be looking for that one person who will do the job for them. What a horrible lesson.
Yeah, who are they going to marry?
Exactly.
They're going to marry a doormat.
And
they're going to treat them like a doormat. And, these are not healthy relationships. This is not how you treat other people. This isn't how you let people treat you. It's not teamwork. And you want them to stand up for themselves. You want them to say, hey, these are my responsibilities. Those are yours. You take care of your responsibilities.
Yes, because that's healthy and normal and right.
Doing and feeling like you should be kind and do other people's responsibilities. The rule of thumb there is, what is it? You don't help others. You only help others out if it's.
No, you let others do what they can and should do for themselves.
Yeah. Okay, there it is. Yeah. You let others do what they can and should do for themselves.
The operative is should.
Yeah, should. Can and should.
Because sometimes...
Otherwise, it's not service, you helping them out.
Yeah.
It's not kindness.
No, it's the opposite. And I realize it's counterintuitive, but when you do for somebody else something that they should be doing for themselves, you're actually taking away from them their ability to have that self-esteem and that self-worth. You're literally telling them, you're not good enough, you're not capable, therefore I have to step in and rescue you.
Yeah.
And that's unhealthy both ways.
Yeah. So that you got to keep that in mind and teach that to your kids. Teach that principle to your kids so that their relationships will be healthy.
And along those lines, and we'll wrap it up here. The idea is when you give kids responsibility, they take pride in knowing that they are needed, that they are necessary, and that they are essential. Because with a group project, they're not. It's typically just one person doing all the work and everybody else is unnecessary. And really, that's what it ends up being.
Yeah, you're leeches.
And how does that make you as the leech feel? Does that really boost your confidence? Does that make you feel wanted and necessary and essential? No. And we talk all the time about the self-esteem of our children. You want to build your kids' self-esteem? Give them responsibilities and hold them accountable to it. There you go. Because self-esteem comes from knowing what is right and acting on it.
Yeah, it's not from giving you a bunch of trophies for nothing.
Or getting an A for a project you didn't work on.
Yeah.
So.
Zing. Okay, so just to wrap it up.
Group projects aren't the same as teamwork.
There we go.
There it is. There's your wrap up. Did you have anything else?
No, that's it. And if we haven't proved it to you...
Go soak your head.
Yeah. There we go. Ow, I just hit my head.
And that's all the time we have for today. If you like our podcast, go to our website, go to the Contact Us page, and make a suggestion for a future podcast. Maybe there's a topic you'd like to hear us talk about.
And feel free to send this podcast to every teacher, teachers union, governor of California.
Everybody you know. In the meantime, enjoy another song from the phantasmagorical Falcon Jasper and his musical mischief. See you next time.
It's not cowbells, is it? Give me more cowbells, baby.
I gotta get more cowbell.